If you travel to some of the most remote villages in Africa, places with no paved roads, sometimes no electricity, not even reliable government services, you are almost guaranteed to find one thing: a cold bottle of Coke. And the story of how it gets there? Well, it's one of the most incredible business sagas of all time.
So the question is, how in the world did an American soda company manage to build a supply chain that's more efficient than the United Nations, more reliable than a lot of governments, and more widespread than almost any other product on the entire planet? Because you see, what we're about to break down isn't really a story about sugar water at all. It's the story of how Coca-Cola built a logistical empire and, in the process, pretty much conquered a continent. To really get how they pulled this off, you first have to understand the massive problem they were staring down, a problem that stumped some of the biggest corporations and NGOs for decades.
Think about it. In the West, logistics seems kind of simple, right? You load up a giant 18-wheeler, drive it down a paved highway from a factory to a store. Easy. But in many parts of Africa, that model just completely falls apart. That same huge truck is often totally useless the second it leaves a major city.
And this specific challenge has a name. It's called the last mile. It's that final, brutal, and most difficult part of the journey, getting a product from a regional hub to some tiny village that might not even be on a map. This is where most supply chains completely break down. And this is the exact problem Coca-Cola had to solve.
So how did they do it? Well, Coca-Cola had this brilliant realization. You can't fight the terrain with big trucks and Western strategies. So instead of fighting it, they decided to partner with it. They came up with something called the Micro Distribution Center, or MDC. Now, the idea is actually pretty simple, but it's totally revolutionary. Instead of building huge centralized warehouses, they helped set up thousands of small, independent ones, run by local entrepreneurs who knew their communities, their roads, and their people inside and out. Okay, so here's a look at how the whole system works. A big truck takes the Coke from the factory to a main hub in a city. Then, smaller trucks take it from that hub out to the micro-distribution centers, right on the edge of that difficult terrain. And then, and this is the absolute game changer, the locals take over, using their own knowledge and their own methods to crush that impossible last mile. And when I say they handle it, I mean they used literally whatever worked. If a road turned into a dirt path, the crates went onto a motorcycle. If the path got even smaller, they'd switch to a bicycle. If there was no path at all, no problem. They'd use canoes, donkeys, even wheelbarrows. It was all about adapting to the reality on the ground, doing whatever it took. And that's the real genius of the model, isn't it? By trusting their product to local people, Coca-Cola didn't just build a supply chain. They built and empowered a massive army of small business owners. Every single one of them personally invested in making it work. But look, getting the product to the village is really only half the battle. The other half is the psychology. How do you convince the people in that village to actually want to buy it? This is where their marketing smarts really came into play. Coca-Cola made a critical decision early on. They were not going to market themselves as some fancy American luxury drink. No, their goal was to embed themselves into the local culture and become an African staple. And they did this by becoming a part of the most important moments in people's lives. They sponsored weddings. They sponsored funerals. They were the main sponsor for the local football matches. They made that iconic red logo a symbol of community and celebration, not a symbol of some foreign corporation. All right, and this is where the story takes a turn that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. Coke's system got so good, so incredibly reliable, that it actually started to become a source of embarrassment for global health organizations. It brought up a really powerful and frankly unsettling question. What does it say about our world when a soda company is better at getting its product to remote villages than humanitarian organizations are at delivering life-saving medicine? Because that was the tragic reality. Just a few years ago, health organizations realized that essential medicines, things like vaccines and AIDS medication, were literally expiring in city warehouses because they couldn't solve that last-mile problem. And yet, in those very same villages, the corner store had fresh stocks of Coca-Cola delivered like clockwork every single week. So, in a stunning twist, what happened? Well, governments and NGOs did the only logical thing they could do. They went to Coca-Cola for help. This led to something called Project Last Mile, a partnership where the soda giant literally teaches public health officials how to use its distribution model to get medical supplies where they need to go. Just think about that for a second. The company that perfected selling sugar water ended up teaching doctors how to save lives, all because they solved a logistics puzzle that nobody else could crack.
Ultimately, Coca-Cola doesn't dominate Africa just because people are thirsty. They're there because they mastered the art of the impossible. And that leaves us with a really profound lesson. If you can solve a problem that difficult, the rewards will always be massive.
This is just one of the amazing stories about the hidden systems that shape our world. If you want to uncover more stories about business, strategy, and power, make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching.